Caucus.com. Jim, we have some clips of President Trump's address last night. He did about an 18-minute address to the nation from the Oval Office on multiple things, the economy and immigration and more. So we have some clips on that. And the farmers in Europe rising up and protesting in the streets. We have that and some more. We'll get to all of it, hopefully. Let's start out with a clip from President Trump last night. Here we go.
Most would agree. I was elected in a landslide, winning the popular vote and all 7 swing states and everything else, with a mandate to take on a sick and corrupt system that really just took the wealth from people and crushed the dreams of the American people. For the last 4 years, the United States was ruled by politicians who fought only for insiders, illegal aliens, career criminals, corporate lobbyists, prisoners, terrorists, and above all, foreign nations, which took advantage of us at levels never seen before. They flooded your cities and towns with illegal aliens. They decimated your hard-earned savings. They indoctrinated your children with hate for America. They just released a level of violent felons that we had never seen to prey on innocent. They caused war. They caused mayhem. They caused a horrible situation all over the globe. But now you have a president who fights for the law-abiding, hardworking people of our country, the ones who make this nation run, who make this nation work.
All right, Jim. I think, the main significance of this speech from last night is, a lot of the stuff, people who watch us and ourselves know a lot of the things he talked about, but
right.
He had a huge audience last night with all the outlets covering it because there was a lot of hype on what he was going to talk about. And there are a lot of rumors on if he was going to, declare war on Venezuela and all this stuff going around of what he was going to talk about. And he was able to just go up there and give his platform.
Well, I let people know on my X profile last night. It's one of the greatest psyops against the mainstream media that I've ever seen. The biggest hype was that he was going to say something about going to war with Venezuela. They played it perfectly because, I got to tell you, left-wing media does not want to acknowledge the actual things that Donald Trump has done. I did an analysis on what he said, and he's, right on target with almost everything that he said. There are a couple things that people would say were slightly exaggerated, but the basic facts are right on target. In fact, I saw a clip of Jen Psaki's show on MS Now because they weren't allowed to call it MSNBC anymore because NBC was too embarrassed to have them as part of their programming. She had so-called fact-check people who were checking things out. They said, I don't even know where he's getting that data, and I don't know where he's getting that data. And they said that everything he said was wrong, except that they didn't point to one fact. Well, I pulled up the facts. The BLS data, the other government data, Donald Trump has made an amazing amount of progress in a short amount of time over 11 months. One of the things that's getting argued against most and consistently over the last recent months is whether inflation is Donald Trump's fault and affordability. And it's really interesting because what they will point to is they'll say, well, the monthly inflation rate was 7.1%, but it kind of went down to 4 and 3% right at the end of Biden's term. But what they don't point out is, and as Donald Trump was pointing out, is that cumulative inflation is massive where we're at. And Donald Trump has leveled it off since he got into office. It would have gotten worse and worse with more and more government spending if Kamala Harris had been president. But he stemmed the tide on inflation. Many other things, too, that he pointed out, which we can talk about. But the left is going nuts. But what's really interesting is every one of these media outlets had to play this speech because they implicated he might talk about going to war with Venezuela. And now now he's got his message out to the American people, and he's going to keep going forward hereafter. And I think it was a brilliant move, and it was an excellent speech. I thought it was an amazing speech of a lot of great facts about all the accomplishments the Trump administration's had with his leadership.
On the topic of inflation, new inflation numbers came out today, right? And they were better than expected. And here is a clip from CNN. I guess it was their CNN's expert, and he said there's no other way to spin this. I guess he knows his bosses wanted him to spin it, but let's listen to this.
Surprised. It was a better number than anyone was expecting. Look, inflation's been very high. It's stayed high. It has not been coming down. But, you know, people were expecting it to be above 3%. It was well below 3%. I mean, I think the president will take this as good news. The investors will think that interest rates will get cut more. So, you know, it was a positive news. There's no other way to spin it.
Absolutely.
Surprise. There's no other way to spin it. Oh, man.
Yeah. Take a look at this. Like the day after Donald Trump makes this speech, whereas I just pointed out, leftist media commentators are trying to say, "Oh no! It's the pricing problem is his," and they have been straining to make this argument for months now. Well, look what we get: an excellent inflation number, and 2% is typically the range that people say is evidence that we're not in a recessionary period. That's what the Fed looks at. I think the Federal Reserve is useless and wasteful anyway. But that being said, we've got Jerome Powell's not going to be able to back away from this. You're going to have a new Federal Reserve chairman coming in that Donald Trump is soon going to announce. And what I'm understanding is it's going to be someone I'm really excited about. I don't know who it's going to be for sure, but just what is implicated, it would be a fantastic move. We would be able to get the addressing some of the federal spending, because we're still seeing massive reductions in federal employees. That's going to have a huge impact this next year. You're going to have economic the economy is going to be spinning up through this next year because you've got tax cuts coming in the consumer base. So that's going to happen with no tax on tips, with no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. Every one of those areas are people who do spend money in varying degrees, but this overtime thing is going to be really huge. And you've got because you have a higher wages in the overtime area typically. And then beyond that, you've got business investment that's still growing. The outlook is potentially pretty strong. And Donald Trump is the guy who made it happen. And it certainly wasn't Republicans in Congress, although they did pass the big, beautiful bill. But, you know, it wouldn't have happened without Donald Trump. So we got a great president, maybe the greatest in my lifetime.
Well, let's move on to this clip that's gone viral recently. And I asked you before the show if you'd seen it. And it just shows how crazy people are. I don't know how no one around this person stepped in and said something. But let's play this clip from a Target. This poor old lady's wearing a Charlie Kirk shirt and someone can't help themselves.
Why?
They let you wear that shirt here?
Yes. Why? Why are you taking my picture?
Why are you wearing that shirt? You're working. It's not a Target
red shirt. I can wear any red shirt.
It's not a plain shirt.
It doesn't have to be.
It's a Charlie Kirk shirt.
Yes. Oh, yes, I know.
Are you stupid?
No.
Why the would you wear that? You're at work at Target. That's not a Target shirt. It's not a plain red shirt. You support a racist.
It's not racist.
You support a racist.
He's not a racist.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is.
I'm sorry, but I'm not going to stand here and argue with you.
You're not. You should go get your manager. You should not be allowed to wear that at work. Unacceptable. Unacceptable.
That's your opinion.
No, the opinion is he's racist and you support him.
That's your opinion, ma'am.
And you should not be allowed to wear that. This is going to be taken above your head. That's insane. Insane.
Have a nice day.
Insane. Piece of shit.
Here's what I'd like to see. I would like to see a lot of people, a lot of conservatives, MAGA supporters, when you see a shirt that has some leftist ideology on it, you see a pro-Cuba communist shirt, you see anything along those lines, just go ahead and take the video and ask them, why are you wearing this? Listen, you know, this is that area where we have to be really good at fighting back. Hard stop. Charlie Kirk was never a racist, maybe one of the least racist people you're going to meet, actually promoted the advancement of people of all colors because he did it based upon their humanity, not upon their skin color. But the left are the most racist of people, and typically, and not all are racist, but they make race an issue, and that is a massive problem. So I'm glad this lady stood up and you know, didn't back down. There's no reason to back down. This kind of shaming is not as effective as it used to be because it's not happening in the federal government. One of the points that Donald Trump made last night in his speech was that DEI and an indoctrination of children has been taken out of the federal purview, particularly through the Department of Education, which does not support DEI or anything anymore. And as he said, education's gone back into the states. But the censorship industrial complex, for now, has been shut down so that you can't get your speech monitored and taken down by some federal bureaucrat in the intelligence community or the FBI or elsewhere, intimidating some social media platform to take down speech. That's gone. I mean, now is the time to push back and make sure you push back hard, because this sort of behavior is not acceptable. And not everyone, I mean, like this woman, listen, she was strong. You could tell she was strong, but she's not the kind of person to push back hard. I think if someone comes up to you and does this sort of thing, you should push back pretty hard. Not in a violent way, not in a rude way, but in a determined way, and say, listen, what you're promoting is fake and false, and I don't accept it. So just go do your own thing and go be productive somewhere. Stop messing around with me. But if you're going to, I'm just going to tell you, you're wrong and you're a liar, and I'm not going to put up with your lies.
Yeah. Yep.
We need that.
And someone set up a GoFundMe or a Give Send Go for the lady, the Target employee, and it's called Fundraising to Give Jeannie from Target a Vacation. And they have raised $218,000 for her.
Oh, I love it.
And she was also asked, I guess someone did an interview with her afterwards, and I think the woman who took the video her employer has put out a statement that they're going to look into this, and she was asked if she thinks she should lose her job, and listen to what she has to say.
I know people are calling for her to be fired for this. Do you think that that's right? Would you like that to happen?
No, I don't think that's right. Like, one saying I have is, two wrongs don't make a right. You know, she wronged me, but I don't want to wrong her, or I don't want her wrong, because it's not going to make it right. I mean, that was her opinion. But she's the one that put it on Facebook, or put it on that. So, you know, but I really wouldn't want to see somebody lose their job over it.
I know people.
Wow. Well, I think the lady who put it out, I don't think it went as planned for her, luckily.
No, this one fell flat. and I do agree with her sentiment on not wanting that job to go away, but I will tell you what jobs still should go away. And I called for this back right after Charlie Kirk was murdered. Every person in education or in some government employment should lose their jobs entirely if they were praising the killing of Charlie Kirk. There is a line here where people should lose their jobs, but we shouldn't be doing it on mere shame and mere hatred for someone's political opinion. That is not appropriate, and I appreciate her heart in that, but I do want to make it very clear. If someone promoted the killing of Charlie Kirk, they ought to lose their job if they're a government employee. And any employer that would allow someone to be employed that has that attitude, listen, they can make the decision whether to do that or not. But explain to me why someone that was promoting the death and killing and murder of Charlie Kirk, you would want working for you anyway. If they're willing to go to that level, what other things are they willing to do?
Yeah.
And there's a place where someone's moral makeup and moral behavior does become relevant when it comes to their jobs. And you don't want to, make that line easy to cross, but you do need to have a line that exists somewhere.
Yep. Well, we got to go to a break. We come back. We got more news, some more hard news, and we'll be right back here in just a moment.
Take a look at this picture. This is my beautiful wife. Does that look like a grandmother to you? Seriously, does that look like a grandmother to you? Well, she is. I took this picture on August 31st, 2025. Now, you want to know how she stays so young and beautiful looking? Well, I'll tell you right now, she does 3 things for sure. She takes Numi every day that's loaded with glutathione to detox your cells. She also takes Bella Grace each and every day, loaded with 3 powerful ingredients. And she takes Gatatana, 1 scoop, the equivalent of 90 billion plant cells. So you can get all of these products that she and myself take each and every day at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. It's a great way to support your health and also our broadcast network as we continue to push out free Christian worldview programming. worldviewtube.com/sponsors.
All right, welcome back from the break. Jim, we have some news out of Europe and some more news out of Australia as well. With it looks like they stopped another attack from happening in Australia right by where the attack at Bondi Beach happened this weekend. It says armed cops swoop on men heading to Bondi Beach over fears they planned a violent act after a terrorist attack. And it looks like a group of police officers or some type of police force hit their vehicle head on and got out of the car and apprehended all of the people who were planning to go attempt to do a violent attack, similar to the one this weekend, it looks like.
We need a police force that is empowered, obviously under the rule of law, but empowered to take down these terrorists. And they are terrorists. If they intend a violent act, they're acting in a terrorist fashion, a murderous fashion, obviously. We need aggressive police work, not everywhere in the West. I mean, the way that our police authorities have been treated over the last few years is really an outrage. And that they're not without criticism, because prior to the George Floyd thing, I think there were some very real criticisms to be given to policing methods that can get out of hand. This is something that can go back and forth. But the reality is you need aggressive work to take these things down. They need to have the tools within the rule of law to be able to fish out these problems and deal with them in some form or fashion. But we need to make this very clear, both in our discourse here in the United States and everywhere around the world. Islamic terrorism is a very real threat in this world. I don't want to go have wars in other countries like we did in Afghanistan and Iraq, which, by the way, they told us was going to fix the problem. It never did. Mm-hmm. It didn't go away, but here's where it can show up. But there's another, in situations like this where someone is attempting to do a particular attack. But there's another thing that we need to be doing. Immigration from people in Muslim countries needs to be very strictly regulated and dealt with. We need a re-review, as Donald Trump has already called for, of people who have come over here from Islamic countries, about whether they really should be certified to be here under any circumstances at all. And if not, they should be removed. And the if not includes violent behavior or calls for violent behavior of any type. Every person that is not an American citizen who was at these so-called Free Palestine protests that often were violent and definitely were promoting terrorist acts by Hamas in Gaza. every person that's not a citizen who was at these rallies, they should be immediately removed, green card or no. They should begin the process of removal because they're not acting in an American manner. And those protests were outrageous. Look how they went away when Donald Trump brought peace there. And his efforts to try to get a peaceful solution to Gaza were hampered by those people. So they should be gone immediately. Anyone that's not a citizen that participated in those protests. And that is not a violation of rights, because you don't get the full constitutional rights unless you're a citizen of this country. And if you're not going to support this country, you should not be in this country if you're not yet a citizen. So there's a lot we should do, and we need to turn the tide of this radical Muslim terrorist activity that has been encouraged by or been engaged in by people who have immigrated to Western countries. It's got to stop. We need to get rid of them.
This is happening in Australia, but it could very well happen here with the open border we had for the last 4 years, because many of this happening in Australia is caused by their immigration problems as well.
What happened in Australia and what we see happening from time to time, even in Europe and on a smaller scale, even sometimes here, or at least it seems to be going in that direction for some people. We need to take a look at the fact of, are these terrorist cell operations that have come into the various Western countries that we are told may have been happening? We need to be very aggressive to look and see if there are terror cells.
Well, there's reports, I mean, it's not confirmed, but there's reports that the MIT professor killed at MIT, I think just a few days ago, there's reports that it may be linked back to Iran because he was working on nuclear science.
Yeah, listen, we need to take this seriously and deal with it for what it actually is. And I just want to reemphasize, there are no connection to constitutional rights available to people who are not citizens of this country when they are in this country. It just does not exist. Now, we do have some legal processes that Congress has set up for removal of these people or evaluation of who they are, whether they're on a green card, which has a more strict process for removal, or whether they're here illegally. Nobody with a green card or here illegally have substantive due process rights the same as the citizens of America. Green card holders have some mild due process rights. But if someone is going to be here and not be supportive of this country in any fashion, mild or great, they should be removed. They should not be here. And we do need to go back to, as the Trump administration is doing, we need to go back to a very strict requirement that people understand the Constitution and understand American liberty before they can become a citizen. We need to get serious about this. Again, Donald Trump's administration has done that, and and the rest of the countries in the West better follow suit, or they're going to keep having problems like in Bondi Beach. And this MIT professor thing is very serious. We better do something about it, and quickly.
Yep. Well, in other news, following along with the immigration topic, we have federal prosecutors charge Haitian migrants in Massachusetts in $7 million SNAP fraud scheme involving fake retail stores that pulled in up to $480,000 per month. Let's watch a little bit of this report.
And Saul Elisme for large-scale SNAP benefit trafficking, a scheme that turned a program designed to feed families into a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise. SNAP benefits are also known as food stamps. The defendants are charged with one count of food stamp fraud. As alleged in the charging documents, these men abused one of the government's most critical safety net programs for their own financial gain. This is taxpayer money meant to keep people from going hungry. These defendants decided to take it for themselves. These defendants exchanged SNAP benefits for cash, which they pocketed. Bonner, a naturalized U.S. citizen from Haiti, owned the Venezuela variety store. Elisme, a lawful permanent resident also from Haiti, owned the Saul Mache Mixe store. These two businesses were co-located within a single storefront in Boston. To be certain, these were not supermarkets. They were not full-service groceries, It would be a huge stretch to even call them convenience stores. In fact, the only thing convenient about these stores was how easy it was to commit SNAP benefit fraud. To put this in perspective, the Venezuela Variety Store is less than 150 square feet in size, smaller than some bathrooms. The Saul Mache Mixe store was approximately 500 square feet in space. By contrast, a supermarket can be 20,000 to 60,000 square feet in size, have a dozen or more registers, and employ numerous employees. Both the Venezuela Variety and Saul Mache Mixe stores had one register, no carriages, no hand baskets, and very little food for sale. One legitimate supermarket in the same area as these stores redeems approximately $80,000 in SNAP benefits per month. Over the last 20 months, the Venezuela Variety Store was redeeming between 3 and 6 times that amount monthly, with nowhere near the space, inventory, customers, or infrastructure to support it. The Sao Mache Mixe store redeemed over $120,000 in SNAP benefits in the last 6 months.
Wow. I don't know how they thought they were going to get away with that with such small stores.
Oh, I know exactly how they knew they were going to get away with it. The Biden administration was lax in these policies. The Biden administration was throwing money out, and it's a moral hazard, the way that we have been handing these monies out, how these programs have been run. When you look at what's happened in Minnesota, you understand that the lax processes by which this money was handed out obviously is being propagated in many places beyond just this instance in Boston that we just heard of and what's going on in Minnesota. And it's because the programs were not set up properly. They were not being audited properly. They are not being run properly. And so when you do that over time, you're going to have people who will see that they can bilk the system, and they will. Again, that's what you call, in insurance terms, that's what you call a moral hazard. The reason you do not provide certain levels of insurance to people, whether it's health insurance or property insurance or car insurance or whatever, the reason you don't offer certain levels of insurance under certain circumstances is because you can create a moral hazard where someone will take advantage of the situation with lax standards and then go and try to bilk the system. This is a normal problem. It's the same thing when it comes to government programs. If you create a system that allows people easily to abuse it, they will. As I said many times, 6,000 years of recorded human history proves the radical corruption of mankind. That's what James Madison was talking about in Federalist 51 when he said that the evils of government are really bad, and he was trying to argue why we needed to move to a more strict, a strictly composed federal government as opposed to the Articles of Confederation system that was way too loose and just couldn't work. But he rightly noted that if all men were angels, governments wouldn't be necessary. This is absolutely the truth. But the problem is we don't have angels running the government who have perfect moral quality to them. And we're on the other side of that problem that Madison was talking about here, where we do not have angels of any sort running government programs. We put these programs together, we make them loose and lax. People learn how to bilk the system, and when they have no consequence for doing that, then they continue to bilk it. This is the tip of the iceberg, folks. It's much worse than just this one instance in Boston.
Yeah, and you see it in Minnesota. We're going to keep seeing these kind of things pop up all over the place. But we're all out of time for today. We'll be back for a shorter week next week because it's Christmas. So we'll be here Monday and Tuesday, and then we're off for the rest of the week. Go to theconservativecaucus.com, theconservativecaucus.com, and worldviewtube.com to watch us next week and all of our programming. Till then, take care.
Better science leads to better outcomes. So by understanding the science in much more intimate detail, delivering a value product that is so different from anybody else.
So when we're stepping outside into seasonal changes, low humidity, sunlight, pollution, All of these things get communicated as stress on the top layer of skin that produces free radicals, and they're bad news for collagen networks. They're going to break down the collagen network and collapse that beautiful tensile strength of your skin. And so that's how we end up with fine lines and wrinkles. Bella Grace is really an elevated formula.
Better than the competition for very obvious reasons. First of all, we're delivering great collagen. We're delivering Verisol, which is the world's most studied form of collagen. So we're starting at a foundation that's really top notch.
So here is a lady today. She's taken the elixir, arthritis in her hands. She could not close her hands and make a fist, but after now being on the elixir, now she can.
The real breakthrough discovery, particularly with the cat's claw, it's a switch that regulates genes. There's thousands of genes that are involved in that inflammation process. When you have chronic inflammation, the problem is the switch is on and it's not being turned off. And so what's happening with the cat's claw is that it removes that little protein switch off your DNA, and the genes go back to a dormant state, and you go back to being, well, really healthy.
When at first we wanted to just have an amazing collagen ingestible product to be able to set the skin up so that my wife, Christina, could come behind that with incredible skincare. And that's exactly what we're still doing. What we weren't anticipating was the magnitude and just the vast amount of benefits that this elixir was going to do for people. Testimonies started flooding back in. About probably 30% of the testimonies were about hair, skin, and nails. The others were about people being able to walk